Thank you, Amanda. So this is a concept brief for, I guess, project currently known as Sterling Crossing, I guess being presented as Elora, in the far northwest corner of the county. This is in the nature of a concept brief, a workshop. We won't make any decisions. This is recorded and broadcast, so I do ask folks to use the microphones so we can kind of overcome the noise here in the room. And then, again, this is kind of in the nature of similar to the presentations that are given at the community meetings. It's an opportunity for the applicant to kind of pitch the concept of their project, get feedback, and adjust to feedback if needed. But it's all part of a pre-application process. So with that, sir, I guess I'll turn it over to you.
Very good. Thank you, Chair Richardson. Chair, I assume you're the chair? Yeah. Thank you, Chair Richardson. My name is Dan Sheldon. I'm with Miller United Real Estate. We're located in the Denver Tech Center area. We are a real estate firm that specializes really in two things. We develop subdivisions all up and down the metro area, as well as developing and owning retail and commercial centers. And as part of our subdivision work, we go out and look for new communities all the time in which to help provide housing for that great need, that big influx of folks coming into our great state. And being a Denver native myself, like you probably may or may not be, but it's a problem we're facing all over the Front Range is an expansion of our population and housing needs. So part of our company's goal is to provide a little bit of that need and provide it for the marketplace. And we have grown a keen interest in your great county and think that it's a nice place to do business, although we haven't done any yet formally with you, but we do look forward to moving this project along with you. With me here today is Michael Sheldon, same last name because yes, we are related, we are cousins. Michael is here specifically because he is a land use consultant and attorney, and he happens to help me on various projects from time to time on land use matters. Also with me today is Tess Hogan from LJA. She is our civil engineer, surveyor. She's not the actual surveyor, but she is our actual civil. But she represents a host of services that her firm is providing for us, and she's the representative from that firm today. So again, that is Tess Hogan from LJA. Also with me today, I want to introduce my son, Jack Sheldon. He's an intern in college right now, and he's interning with me, just watching for the summer and listening. And then finally, well, here comes Mark. But Peter Wall is here from Wall Kane. Did I say that right? Wall Kane Consulting, in a consulting capacity. And finally, and just right in time, if you'll come up, Mark, we're going to set you up there, and Jack can maybe help with the easels. While you're doing that, Mark, you may know Mark, you may recognize Mark. He's been working in your county now for some time. Mark Kiefer with Norris Design, and he's our planner for the project. So with that, if it pleases the chair and the rest of the commission, I'd like to take a quick break, let him get set up, and then I'll continue with the presentation.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, thanks.
All right, thank you, commissioners, for that brief pause there. So anyway, that's our team, and we appreciate you having us here. I guess my first thing I'd like to say is thank you. Thank you for the concept brief program that you do. It's refreshing. For us developers, in the community, and I can't speak for others, but for me alone, I don't get to do this in front of other city councils or county commissioners. The process doesn't exist. I'd like to do it. It's an opportunity for us to open dialogue about a potential project and for me to get really good feedback from the electeds as to your thoughts on a project before I go down a 6 or 9 or 12-month process before I hear from you in a formal capacity. So this is really a welcome thing, and I appreciate it very much. I thought maybe before we get into the PowerPoint as well, I might give you a little background about the community meeting. We had a community meeting last week. It was held on July 26th, and Mark Dettenreiter was in attendance, as well as my team that I just introduced to you here, and I counted 35 members of the public in attendance, and that might be off by 1 or 2 people, just as I kind of lost track as people were kind of coming and going a little bit. We held it at Chief Cudliffe's Rattlesnake Fire Protection District building, and it was a packed house. We used every chair there, which was really welcoming and pleasant for us to see. It's not very often that we get that much community input and get people showing up for community meetings. And, you know, a lot of times people might think that's a bad thing. People in my shoes, a developer, might think having a lot of people showing up at a community meeting is probably not a good thing. I actually look at it differently. I like to have that feedback, and I like to have the neighbors there, and especially the ones who are going to be impacted, whether they're in your jurisdiction or potentially on the other side of the county line to the west, or potentially on the other side of the county line to the north. And I believe we had all 3 of those represented. We had some of your constituents. We had some of the Arapahoe County folks there, which were probably also Aurora people. And we had, for certain, we had some Douglas County, unincorporated Douglas County folks there. And frankly, it was a good showing, and they brought up some good discussion points. And I'll just high level hit on them right now, and then we'll get into a little bit about them when we give you our PowerPoint presentation, which is only a few minutes long. So this is not going to take a big long moment, but we really heard 3 major topics, and in no particular order. We heard about traffic concerns, we heard about density concerns, and we heard about water concerns. And I think that generally summarizes the bulk of the comments that we took in that night. There were maybe a few straggler comments that we'll need to address or respond back to folks. But with regards to density, we are simply enhancing an old PUD that was out there, and we'll get into that in our PowerPoint. We are seeking the ability to build more than what was in that original PUD, but we think that there's good reason for that, and we'll elaborate on that. And then regarding the water, we think we've got a good solution for your community members out there, in that we're potentially looking to bring over Aurora Water and bringing that across the county line from north to south in order to serve this project. By doing so, we would not be sticking a straw, so to speak, into the aquifers that all of your current constituents are trying to drink from, if that makes sense. And then the third issue was traffic. And with regards to traffic, we heard a lot of traffic concerns, but predominantly from Douglas County residents. And they were concerned about the impact that our community would add to an already existing condition traffic problem. And we can elaborate on that to you some more as well. But really, those were the high-level things. It was not a pitchfork kind of meeting where we had people out there, really riled up. In fact, those that were super interested and were verbal during the meeting with comments or questions, almost all of them came up to me after the meeting, and we visited for quite a while. And then I followed up with all of them the next day, and I've spoken to all of them, and I've been out on site with one of them now, and I'm trying to understand. what the concerns of the community are, whether they're your constituents or outside of your jurisdiction. That is something that we take very seriously in our office. We have about six, seven projects going at any given time in our office, land development projects, entitlement and development. And we take our neighborhood and community input very seriously. We typically have somewhere between 6 and 10 neighborhood meetings per project. Put that in perspective, most jurisdictions, whether incorporated city or unincorporated county, require a single neighborhood meeting for a entitlement project. We typically go way beyond that. We meet with neighbors constantly through our process, and I think what we can demonstrate to you during, not tonight, not today, but over the course of the next several months, we will demonstrate to you, and you'll see it firsthand, that we do care about the communities that we work in, and we care about the folks that live in and around those communities. So we do want to hear from them and try to work with them on helping with their concerns. So with that, I think maybe that's a good segue for me to turn it over to Mark and allow him to walk you through our, I think, 8 or 10 slide PowerPoint. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, how are you? I apologize again for the little technical snafu in my timing today, but again, my name is Mark Kiefer. I'm with Norris Design, representing Miller United, Dan, who you've just met. As Dan had mentioned, we did have a community meeting last week, and it's fairly well attended. Mark Dentrider was there as well. So what you'll see in this PowerPoint is basically the same presentation that we talked to our neighbors about. We wanted to keep it somewhat consistent so that at least those that are in the audience that were in attendance, as well as the commissioners, have the same information right now. What we're doing is starting a PUD amendment process. This is an existing PUD that has probably been already mentioned. It's called Sterling Crossing. It was done in 2007. And our development team, as Dan probably has also introduced already, Dan being our leader here at Miller United. Our civil engineer is Tess Hogan, who is also in the audience. We have traffic consultants at SM Rocha. They're already underway preparing a traffic study, just looking at the impacts on Elbert Road and County Line Road, and then myself at Norris Design. There are several other folks, too, that are involved with this project that are working on various aspects of it. And as Dan had said, there's current negotiations going on with the city of Aurora. And Mr. Michael Sheldon, who also is with us today, is kind of leading that charge, too. So he's our direct conduit with the city of Aurora in that water and sewer extra-jurisdictional utility agreement. So the location of it, again, you probably have seen this too, but it's right on the very, very northwestern corner of Elbert County. It's a square property of about 197 acres. To the north, you'll see Overland Ranch, which is in the city of Aurora right now. It's a project that is in several phases of construction, but it's already in the city of Aurora. To the west is Piney Lakes Trails, which is a project within Douglas County. So it's right across the street from Delbert Road. So if you look at that, this map's sort of skewed, but the boundary of the property called Elora on this site is Delbert Road to the west and County Line Road to the north. So then also on that catty corner from that intersection is Blackstone Project, which, as you're probably familiar, if you've been in that part of the county, it's already pretty much developed out. So you'll see a lot of home sites and everything else. And not too far from the site, actually, is the connection to E470. So as I mentioned, the property is currently referred to as Sterling Crossing. It was originally zoned in 2017. It included 26 acres of commercial development right on the corner of the site with about 113 lots and about 25 estate lots to the south. There were 2 metropolitan districts also formed at that time in 2007. And there was a single district for the residential project as well as one for the commercial site. A preliminary plat was also approved that year. It took the entire project through at least the initial platting portion of the project, the initial step of the subdivision process, as you are aware. That preliminary plat was also a recorded document, but again, nothing ever followed that, so there was no final plat or any other type of agreement associated with that preliminary plat. So our amendment request today is we feel that this existing PUD, the Sterling Crossing PUD, requires an update due to the many market changes that have happened since 2007. A handful of updates would include the old zoning would need to be brought up to current code requirements in the county, and that includes public notice requirements that have changed over time, as well as some of the, like the 300-year rule and a couple of those other aspects that have changed since then. We also believe that the old development standards that were approved in the 2007 Sterling Crossing PUD were minimal. They didn't include any development standards associated with it. They're just some basic ones, such as size of lot, setbacks, things like that. But there were no design standards for the park and open space component of this project, and the commercial site really had very minimal standards associated with it. So we feel that the new PUD, the old PUD, does not have the same quality of development protection that we feel is important today in Elbert County. The other point, too, the old PUD includes a 26-acre site that's solely developed for commercial, or zoned for commercial, rather. There's a couple things with that, and as I mentioned, one of them, the current PUD does not address any specific development standards associated with it. So it can be anything related to commercial, non-residential type of uses. We also think that the market right now does not accommodate a 26-acre commercial site like a King Soopers in this location. There are a lot of rooftops growing in the area, but we don't feel like that is, at least ripe currently for that type of development, especially since right within a mile of the site to the north in Aurora, there's a lot of commercial activity already existing up there, like with the Southlands project and some of the other commercial areas. So that's pretty well served right now in the marketplace as it relates to commercial and retail. The other thing, too, is that we feel that the 26 acres of commercial site will have a direct negative effect on some of the area residents out there, particularly Elbert County residents, because they're used to dark skies, not as much traffic congestion associated with residential development as there is with commercial development. And then just noise. We think that, a large project like that is going to be generating a little bit more of an impact for our neighbors than what a new residential neighborhood would do. And then lastly, I think the old PUD, as you'll see, lacked adequate park space and specifically for future residents, not just future residents of this project, but future residents for Elbert County. The old PUD did not have any provisions for public or for public parks, particularly neighborhood parks. It was an open space tract there that included protection of a floodplain that runs through the property, but really there wasn't anything more than that. There was nothing that would serve the existing neighborhoods out there. So that's the summary of it in terms of why we would want to make this request. One thing I do want to note, because this is something that will be subject to some conversation over time, and particularly something we wanted to make clear to the neighbors out there as well as the county staff, the current plan is referred to as the Sterling Crossing PUD. This would be an amendment to that, but part of that amendment process would be a rebranding too. We want to change the name of the project, for many reasons. One is there's several projects out there in the market in the vicinity of this area that have that name or a similar name to that would cause a lot of confusion. One project in particular, Sterling Ranch, not to bring up a specific example, but they currently have a water agreement with the city of Aurora as well, so we didn't want to make that confusion already from the get-go. So the applications themselves will be initiated as Sterling Crossing PUD amendment, but it's also known as AKA Elora PUD. So the precedent there too is similar. If you remember a project that I have worked on recently with the Independence Project, that was a different PUD name, the Bandera PUDs, and part of that amendment process was essentially rebranding it to what it is today, Independence. So I just want to make, it sounds like a minor point, but I just want to make sure that is clear for members of the audience as well as staff and the commission that this will have essentially two names in the process. So a real quick overview. This is an example of the old Sterling Crossing PUD. This is a graphic example of it. Unfortunately, I had planned on having the actual document into this PowerPoint, but the recorded copy of it was such poor quality we had to do a graphic of it, basically transpose some of the things that were in that document. So I noted that this is a graphic representation of the original PUD plan. And as I mentioned before, the PA3, what's referred to as PA3 up there, the burnt orange color, that's the commercial site. And then there are no identified park spaces and little separation of existing development to the east. And again, if you're familiar with that area, there's a project, some county residents that live immediately east of the property line. This little separation here is probably less than adequate to maintain their rural lifestyle and values in that project to the east. The other thing too, in that planning area too, the southern portion of the project, those are estate lots. And I just wanted to point that out because we feel that the logic or the idea behind that was a good idea fundamentally. And that's something that we wanted to keep in this PUD amendment. So if there were one portion of this project that had not changed much, it's in that lower portion of the project that allows for larger lots, single family detached, to kind of create a transition or a match with the properties to the south. So this is the new concept plan that we wanted to start our conversation with. We've shrunk the 26-acre site to a 5-acre commercial property on the corner of Elbert and County Line Road. What we're looking at right now in terms of that 5-acre site are uses like urgent care facilities, daycare type of things that would support the existing neighbors out there today. And also work in concert with the projects that are up in Aurora, the bigger commercial projects, but this would immediately allow for some of our neighbors to have access to those types of services that don't exist today. In addition to that, it's kind of hard to see on this graphic, but we have 5 developed park sites within the project. These would be park sites that would include playground equipment, play areas for the residents, and all linked together with trail systems. Again, as I mentioned, that did not exist in the original Sterling Crossing PUD. So these 5 park sites are landscaped areas that would include those types of amenities that you would see in a residential community like this. As I mentioned, the large lots on the southern property line, we've kept those the same. We actually took out one of them in the lower southeast corner. The original PUD had a large lot proposal in that area, one of the larger lots that was right in the middle of a large portion of that lot was within a floodplain. So we decided to keep that outside of development altogether. So we took out one of those estate lots and replaced it with an open space tract to preserve the floodplain out there. We do include additional home sites. Right now, this proposal has 308 single-family homes. That's an increase from 113 on the original PUD. The rationale that we're using there is that a large portion of this project that was originally scheduled for commercial development is what we're looking at now, turning it into residential development, and allows for the economic feasibility of this project, both from an infrastructure perspective, but also our water agreements with Aurora require some kind of commitment in terms of financing too. So we wanted to make sure that our metro district could support that. And then finally, again, as I mentioned previously, the new PUD standards, we hope, support an increased quality of development out here, including residential development standards, similar to what you've seen in the past in your newer projects, and also newer standards for our commercial site, but most importantly, development standards for these parks and open space, which right now, the existing Sterling Crossing PUD had no design standards, if you will, at all. It just talked about preservation of natural open space. What we're doing here is creating a set of criteria that these areas can be developed in an appropriate and quality manner that includes trails and other amenities within them. So I'm sure I don't need to go over much of this since the commission particularly, and certainly Mark and his staff deal with the PUD amendment process. What we're looking at is amending the existing Sterling Ranch PUD to bring everything up to date. The development review process, which we would hope to start soon, would be to meet the technical requirements of the Elbert County zoning regulations, acknowledge any previous approvals, if any, on the current PUD, and then also provide for additional legal documentation, which is an additional aspect of this project that does not exist with the Sterling Crossing PUD. Is a development agreement, which again I know the commission is familiar with, and certainly Bart Greer, your county attorney. This is a development agreement that would bind future builders and developers of the site to any sort of agreements or requirements that would come up in this review process. And I just wanted to reiterate that is something that does not exist right now within the Sterling Ranch or the Sterling Crossing PUD. And most importantly, again, we do want to make sure that we're transparent and open to our conversations with the neighbors. I think Dan can go into this in a bit too, but we've committed to several more meetings with our neighbors and ongoing discussions and dialogues with particularly our Elbert County natives, neighbors, because we feel that they have much at stake here in this process. So we want to reach out to them specifically beyond what we did with just the community information meeting. So with that, that's a real short overview. And again, I apologize for my tardiness and my technical inability to pull this off, but
no, that's fine. Did you have things you wanted to add, it sounded like?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to just maybe address a few things that Mark said and elaborate or clarify a few things. Number one, and I know you didn't mean to say this, but Overland Ranch, the project that is just north of Elora, is not under various stages of construction right now. I think he inadvertently said construction. It's going through various stages of its entitlements right now. It's going through plats and preliminary plats and various stuff like that right now. They have not broken ground on that yet. Regarding our commercial downsizing, I did bring a couple of letters for each of you. You don't have to read them now, but these are from the brokerage community. So I don't ask you, and one for staff. I don't expect you to take my word for it necessarily. We do develop commercial, and frankly, if we could develop a 26-acre commercial site here, we would love to. But the market's not there for it. If we could put in a King Soopers here, we'd love to, but there's no market. So I solicited these letters from industry professionals, and I've just assembled them for you to put in your file, and you can see that there's folks that are professionals in the industry that are saying the same thing, that a couple of pads out here, maybe an inline retail building with some neighborhood-type shops in it, maybe a restaurant, maybe a bank, maybe a daycare, those kind of things are likely what we end up seeing out here in the not too distant future. We did Mark, can you go back to our site plan? Well, it may be easier for me to do it here. Would you just hand me that? I'll try to stay in the microphone here, but some of the stuff we heard from the community the other night at the meeting was this eastern edge treatment, and these lots in here, we met with a few of these folks, and they've got relatively large lots comparatively speaking to what we're proposing. And we've already been in follow-up communication with them, and we'll have promised them to continue to work on solutions for them for this eastern edge, whether it's a combination of removing potentially some lots in here, which I told them I'm open to discussing the removal of some lots, keeping in mind that we're not in the preliminary plat stage of our entitlement yet. We're in zoning. So this was just done conceptually so that you all could see what that might look like. Instead of just a big bubble plan, we're showing you what this could theoretically look like. But we want to make sure that these neighbors know that we're not going to just abandon them here. We're talking about possibly berming our eastern edge, and then on top of that berming, maybe putting in staggered landscaping, pine trees, something like that, so that they won't have a diminished investment in their properties with our edge there if we come in with smaller lots. Bigger, not bigger homes necessarily, but these homes in here, while they may be on smaller lots than these adjacent lots in the county, they're still going to be market rate homes. These are going to be homes that are selling for probably what you're used to seeing them selling for in the adjacent jurisdiction up here in Blackstone, which can be anywhere from the low sixes in today's world to over $1 million. That's how much these homes will likely be. And that'll be driven by the market. When I take this out to the market and we determine who our home builder will be, they'll come in and say, yeah, we're going to build this many square foot and this many types of houses, and here's the pricing that we're envisioning on these products. So I just wanted to mention that on this. We're committed to working with our neighbors, just like we did down here on the Sky Rim edge. While I don't think we're going to end up with the large lots like this here, because that'd be a significant deviation from the existing 2007 zoning, we are committed to working with those neighbors on finding a solution that works for them. So I wanted to mention that. And then, the only other thing that we haven't mentioned is that simultaneously with our submittal of our PUD documents to your staff, which is going to be happening fairly soon, we are planning on submitting a metropolitan district amendments. And I say amendments plural. There are two districts, as Mark alluded to, the residential and commercial districts. So those go in front of you also for consideration and go through a process. Our amendments to those service plans, we didn't plan on highlighting a whole lot today because they're really just highlighting the acreage, new changes to acreage of residential and commercial, and different mill levies that need to be associated with the project now to make it work, bringing it essentially up to today's standards instead of when it was done in 2004 is when those districts, almost 20 years ago, is when those districts were originally approved. So those were my follow-ups, and now I'm happy to answer questions that you all may have. Oh, and Michael wants to talk, so here we go.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So one of my responsibilities for this project is to finalize the intergovernmental agreement between Aurora and our districts and ourselves here. Aurora has several times created intergovernmental agreements with the counties to provide water outside the city. After all, the Aurora Water Department is in business to sell water. This particular area has Aurora water on all sides of it already. And if you look at immediately to the west of us at Piney Lake Trails, and then the trails at Smoky Hill, those are both projects in Douglas County with Aurora water. They've not been annexed to Aurora, nor do we plan on annexing this property to Aurora. We want to develop it in the county using Aurora water. I want to represent to the commissioners today that we have earned the support of the Aurora Water Director for this project. When we started, Pardon me? Yes.
Yes, includes sewer.
Yes. So when we started this project, we asked the Aurora Water Department and some of the electeds and the city manager in Aurora also whether there was sufficient capacity in the water line that is already serving not only the Douglas County and sewer, water and sewer.
Sorry, real quick. When we talk about water right now, just for the record, we're talking about water and sewer. So if we just reference one of those two utilities, we're really talking about both.
We assumed you understood that, and because both of these projects to our west do have Aurora water and sewer, and yes, when we started this project, we asked the technical folks whether there was sufficient capacity to do this project, and the answer was yes. So we are very far along in our negotiations on this intergovernmental agreement. I want to represent to the commissioners today that we expect that by the end of August, we'll have a finalized IGA. It could slip a few weeks into September, that's possible, but the basics of it have been agreed to. We're working on some of the details of it within the next day or two, after which we're going to be going forward to the City Council for final approval. So these are Aurora utilities. They're already serving both the Overland Ranch already to our north and everything to our west. There's capacity to do this as well. And so they have accepted the fact that we're not annexing this property into the city, but can provide extra jurisdictional, outside their jurisdiction water to these communities. I was involved in the first time they did that in Sterling Ranch down in Southwest. We worked on that project to provide the Aurora water there as well. If you have any questions about that, I'm here to answer your questions.
Yeah, I think just broadly. Yeah, I've got a couple.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. One is, what's the ratio between estate lots and high-density lots? Or just how many of one and how many of the other? I can do the ratio.
We have, so what we have we have a total of 300 lots. That includes the estate and the other lots. We have
Mark, I can answer it. We have 21 estate lots, sir. That's everything you see here, and I'm sorry the audience can't see me, but everything south of the drainage.
Yeah.
There are 21 estate lots, which if we have 308 to begin with, that would leave 287 for what I'm calling the production or smaller lots.
Okay, my other question is a little bit more financially oriented, is that for commercial lots, we get a 1% sales tax on transactions. If we take those away, that'll diminish that. And then secondly, if you have a commercial lot or a private lot that have the same value, the commercial people pay 4 times as much property tax. So one of the things is that when we get down the road here, I'm going to want to see a comparative table showing the impacts this way and the impacts the other way.
And just so I'm understanding you, Commissioner, you want a comparison table between the 26 acres that it's zoned for today versus the 5 acres we're planning for in the future?
Yes, and probable cash, and I understand I haven't read this yet, so.
Right.
But the whole point I'm getting at is, and I was on the Planning Commission when this was approved a long time ago, is that we were anticipating, and it's a long time since it was approved, that there would be a lot of commercial activity here, and of course there's been none. So, but reducing that, the commercial land size from a significant size to a much diminished size, that could have a significant impact on property taxation. Or in taxation assessed values, however you want to term it.
I think I understand your point, and can't dispute it, but I would suggest that if the 26 acres of commercial were never to get developed because there's no market for 26 acres of commercial, then having 100% of nothing is no better than having 5 acres of commercial out there and having all of it built out. Meaning, if you had 5 acres out of the 26 get built because that's all the market would bear, your revenue from property taxes from those 5 acres would be the same as it would be had you had only 5 acres of zoned commercial and all of it was built out. We will build whatever, we would love to build as much commercial as we could. Commercial for us is right in our wheelhouse, and we like developing commercial ground. We want to be realistic with you all and with your citizens that getting that kind of acreage of built-out commercial is not going to happen. Not going to happen in our lifetimes. Probably not going to happen in my son's lifetime. So to have it zoned and be there ready to go, and just trying to do a comparison from 26 acres of essentially non-market commercial versus 5, which we can deliver, it's going to be a big difference for you. You're going to see that difference, and I'm happy to prepare it for you and deliver it to your staff, and they can share it with you. But it's not going to be a realistic depiction because I don't think 26 is ever going to be achievable. Does that make sense?
I'd also like to add, and I think Mark was at the neighborhood meeting also, that the neighbors were very pleased that there would be significantly less commercial.
Yes,
they were worried about the impacts, not only traffic, but lighting and noise and everything else about that level of commercial, which wasn't going to happen anyway.
We can do that. If it's okay with you, I'll work through your staff, and if I've got questions about what it is specifically you're seeking, we'll do that through Mark's office and let him collaborate with you and make sure that I'm getting the comparison correct for you.
I'm just trying to do a mental analysis of what the amendment does to county expectations.
But your finance director or treasurer, whatever you have here in the county, would not be counting on right now on any future tax rules, I don't think. I'd be shocked if they were 26 acres of commercial out there today, just because it's zoned that way. I don't think they've got it in their, certainly not in their near forecast. And I'd be shocked if they had in their long-range forecast 26 acres of built-out commercial at this site. That would not be commonplace, I don't think, where your finance director would be providing you that kind of potential revenue in your income stream. I doubt that's happening.
And just one more question. Developments like this quite often have the need for parks and swimming pools, something. And so where I'm going with this is, give me an idea of timing.
Timing?
Yes.
Timing, yeah. So if we are successful going through your process, I would expect that we would be completing our zoning roughly around year end. We have a calendar that we've shown to your staff, and they've looked at it and haven't necessarily opined to it, but they haven't really objected either. Anyway, zoning near year end, and then going through the platting process, preliminary plat and final plat. And with that final plat, we develop construction documents, CDs. We would then have those approved sometime in Q3, Q4 of 2024. Okay, so end of next year is when I'd expect to have those docs roughly completed. Would that, Mark, would you say that's fair-ish? I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, Mark Denrader, Director of Community and Economic Development. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you. So then, once we have those approvals, we would then, at that point, I assume we would break ground, either us doing the horizontal development, meaning my firm, or a home builder in which we would be selling lots to. We would break ground and start building the infrastructure for the project. And that infrastructure would include the grading, those water and sewer utilities we've been talking about, putting in the streets, and so on. That process, the infrastructure on here is at least a year long. So if we started that, say, January of 2025, remember we take all of 24 to get through our entitlements through you folks. If we started grading in 2025, it would take us a year to get infrastructure built. So that's all of 2025, which means houses would start developing towards the end of 2025 as infrastructure is finishing. We would start seeing some houses in 2026. And I would guess that the commercial, a little bit of the answer on the commercial is tied to what's going to happen with Overland Ranch to our north, because that would be another target base for customers. But assuming that that project continues to move forward and they take advantage of a good economic cycle that the home building world is in right now, I would expect that that project will be moving forward and possibly be doing so a little bit ahead of our project, because they are 75%, if I had to venture a guess. I don't know the details, but I'm guessing they're more than halfway done with their entitlement process right now through Aurora. So if they're ahead of us, they'd be breaking ground. They'd have houses coming out of the ground maybe 6 months or a year earlier than ours. But once we have houses coming out of the ground, then I think we have a story to go tell to the retailers out there, right? If we want to seek out a bank or restaurant or daycare or something like that, once we have rooftops coming, that's when they'll start looking. So I don't know if that answered your question, but houses in 26, retail maybe as early as 27.
Back on the water and sewer, I know it said you were working on an IGA. I'm assuming the metro districts or the other side, the other government involved on that. Are you pledging your water rights to Aurora for this, or just a purchase agreement?
Yes, Mr. Chair. As part of the IGA, we give the 270 acre-feet of water that we have to the city of Aurora. They use that as part of their augmentation plans, but we do have to give that to them. I will tell you that in our well-attended neighborhood meeting last week, I heard a collective sigh of relief when we mentioned we were going to use Aurora water rather than aquifer water. The neighbors, all of them from Douglas County, Elbert, were very pleased with that prospect.
Actually, the fact that we may have some renewable source coming into the county, I think, is a tremendous step forward. And the 278, I assume that'll be held in their portfolio for augmentation. There's not plans to drill or transport water from.
That is my understanding. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that, as that moves forward, I think we'd be very interested in that agreement. We've been very cautious about water use and very cognizant of the fact that we have no renewable, no surface waters to speak of in the county. So,
and we fully understand that, and if I were in your shoes, I would be very concerned and cautious about it as well. And so what we have done is come up with a plan, I think, that provides that renewable source, that does not deplete aquifers, doesn't put a straw in the ground whatsoever. And so I think for your constituents, I think they appeared to be very happy at our meeting, as Michael suggested. And I think it's a good plan to have these intergovernmental agreements with outside service providers, if and when applicable.
I appreciate that. I also would like, the fact that you're planning multiple community meetings and you're addressing concerns and looking at your plans based on feedback is very refreshing. And as well as your recognition that we do need to update design guides. We've had several older subdivisions that had incomplete or inadequate design guides, and when you start trying to look at, I guess, in pairing this with your service plans, what are you trying to fund? It's kind of unclear if the design guides aren't complete, what level of amenities, what infrastructure is really being funded and needed, and therefore how do you look at that? Do like the fact that we're talking about service plan updates in conjunction with the concept. So we know, again, you know, what we're, that those two go hand in hand. One isn't driving the other, that they complement each other well. I know you talked kind of the market rate homes, and we also do struggle in the county with attainable, affordable housing for folks that actually live and provide services here. So I would encourage, as you go through this, we had a housing needs assessment that was conducted this previous year. If you can look at that and see if there are things that can be accommodated, whether it's paired homes or patio type, if there's a portion of the project that might not be the most profitable for a builder, but also provides for the community that you're trying to serve.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We are open to that, and I think in our draft PUD that we've been preparing over the last month or so, we have included some of those provisions for those type of housing products. While we haven't gone to the home builder community yet, we will be soon. And when we do, we will make sure to bring it up. I will make sure to study that housing needs assessment. Is that something that's available online, Mark?
It is, and I can send you a copy as well.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, I did have one other comment I'd like to bring up regarding district and infrastructure. It was brought up to our attention at our pre-app, I think it was July 6th, we had a pre-app here at the county building, that county services may not be able to extend this far north and then get into our private road system. You're familiar with what I'm talking about, I assume?
You're talking maintenance, no
Maintenance of the roadways. Yeah. As a result, I wanted to make you aware that in our service plan amendments that we are going to be presenting you with concurrent with our PUD amendments in the next, whenever they come in, we are going to be coming in with a increase in the mill levy in order to help pay for said maintenance of the roads. And I think that's only fair if we can't get county services to that community because it's so far out of the core of your community that we would be able to increase our mill levy for O&M, operations and maintenance of those roads if our district's going to end up needing to fund the road improvements, the maintenance of the roads.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll just see what that looks
Yeah,
like.
well, I'm not asking you
that's
to,
a reasonable,
you don't need to comment on it now. I
and-
just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming.
but we have struggled in the past. Not only the proximity is probably not as critical as, you know, the size of cul-de-sacs that are needed to turn a plow truck that was designed for a collector road, right, to do things without damaging the property or placing snow. I mean, just, we start putting tremendous demands for pavement widths if we have to work with our trucks in there, so the ability to clear with more appropriate sized equipment.
We are open. I don't want to necessarily close the door on this and say this is exactly what we're doing, but the gentleman we heard from your road and bridge department that day, I don't remember his name, but he said that it wasn't a definitive no, we would not maintain your roads, but it was a likely we will not maintain your roads. Is that fair? Okay. So that being the case, if there's a program out there, whatever it may look like, whereby the county road and bridge department could come out and still serve these roads, we would be very much open to it and appreciative of it and be willing to help somehow. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but we certainly wouldn't need the additional mills for O&M in our district if we were able to have services provided by the county personnel.
Yeah, I think that's probably a do out on our side, because that's analysis that's ongoing of
Sure.
Trying not to overburden the capabilities we have. And we know the final road network may have something to do with that too. If
Okay.
there's
All right.
areas that are more collector or through streets that we can get through easily, that again don't require, in my mind, it's the bigger piece is when we start getting into the cul-de-sacs and all we have is really large equipment to work, and that, causes things to be over-designed on your side.
Big heavy metal going into neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I got it.
And then there's that other issue, I think in that part of Delbert Road up there, Douglas County maintains that. And then on County Line Road 194 there, I think Aurora maintains it there. So there's going to be some weirdness trying to figure out how all those pieces fit together.
Jurisdictional doing this. We've heard that from your staff now, so they're on top of that as well and advised us accordingly.
That's a good point on that. So.
Okay.
I can add too, in that regard, it did come up in our community information meeting about how all those, like specifically the intersection of Delbert Road and County Line Road would be maintained. I think this gives Elbert County a great role in taking the lead in terms of facilitating those types of improvements. And not to put you or your staff on the spot, but you know, there are issues out there that probably need some attention that your neighbors are not providing. And I think it's probably more important to Elbert County, particularly since the traffic shed is going east or westbound, that you have this great opportunity to really have some leadership in terms of how those solutions really occur.
I agree that intersection, I'm sure will take a lot of study, and the traffic study and everything will take all that into account. You know, just a couple weeks ago, I was coming back from Southlands, and there was a terrible accident there at that intersection. So I know it's going to be a concern for the citizens all the way around how that intersection interacts. A couple questions I had, just to way back to the back. What's the size of an estate lot versus the size of your other lots?
Good question. So right now, what we have in brown, and again, this is a high-level concept plan. You are not seeing this in your submittal that we're making to you soon. This is just for conceptual discussion purposes. But what's in brown are currently shown as 50 by 125-foot lots. The middle section here is 60 by 125-foot lots. And the yellow, before we get down here to the estate lots, the yellows are 70 by 125-foot lots. And so what this is meeting is more of the housing demand that's pushing out into our suburbs. And this is a little different down here. What you see down here, these are all 1 to 3 acre lots in yellow here. And then transitioning to our largest lots, which we tried to make like-kind lots here to what is in Sky Rim here. So that if this person lives on a 4-acre lot here in Sky Rim, they have a like-kind lot backing up to them with a similar but circa 2025 or 6 or 7 year home, built home. So we transition our density as we go further south.
I really like that concept. I think that blending that in is terrific, and I appreciate you working with the neighbors to the east to work with them. That's commendable for you guys. Other question I have here, as we talk about the different park sites and everything that's linked to the trails and throughout, I assume that will be maintained through the Metro District. What we own that?
That is correct.
So they would take care of all the watering, the mowing, all the upkeep?
Correct.
Like that? Okay. I guess I'll ask Mark, just for, you were at the meeting as well, just as you agree with the consensus here, the concerns around traffic density and water at the community meeting?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, and then Mark Kiefer just alluded to one of the subtopics related to traffic. I had a couple folks come up to me and inquire or share their thoughts with me on road improvements, the infrastructure, and the concern up in that corner of the county.
Commissioner, if I may, on this topic of traffic, it's important to note that we will be building our required improvements as any developer would. Development pays its own way. We would be developing our improvements on the south side of County Line Road. So the I call it Butterfield. That was the old name from years ago, but it's now called Overland Ranch. That's just north of us there on the contextual map. They are designing and will be building the northern lanes. We will be building the southern lanes. Without this site developing, those lanes, unless it becomes a county capital improvement project, this infrastructure does not get built, nor does the infrastructure along Elbert get built without somebody building out this development. So it's a bit of a trade-off for the community, for both your constituents as well as Douglas County and Arapahoe County folks. Yeah, there's going to be more people that are going to be coming into the community in general, but we're going to be, I think, greatly improving the infrastructure out there.
I guess both those areas, Delbert and County Line, I guess I know this is your world, but be prepared for a lot of coordination between multiple jurisdictions. I mean, we'll drive the requirements for traffic studies, but they're the owners of the roads and the final deciders on design for those pieces. So
we have no misconception that it's going to be a big undertaking.
okay.
It's why we hired that young lady over there to be our civil. She's going to go figure it out.
I hope it remains civil throughout. So the open space trail system, you envision that as primarily serving the residents of this community, or will there be connectivity to, I guess, the commercial parking lot if somebody wants to
Yeah, so
come in
clearly,
and stroll? That's
Commissioner, we haven't designed it yet, but our concept is that the parks, our open space and our parks, our pocket parks, with our tot lots and shelters and gazebos and picnic tables and basketball court or whatever it may have in these parks, will be used by these residents, but not exclusively. They will be open to the public, and whether that public is a City of Aurora resident or an Elbert County resident coming in, these will be open parks. And yes, trails, we do intend on, we didn't get into that level of detail on here, but all of our projects will have trails connecting from one little node of the neighborhood to another and then out to the road and crossing the drainage here to get to the large lots. And we'll make sure that there's connectivity throughout the community.
I guess you had mentioned Sterling Ranch, and other developments you've worked on. Is this generally a small development for you? I mean, where is this in the scope of what you generally seek
That's a
to
good
develop?
question. We tend to develop things kind of with the market. So if the market's calling for more housing, we try to deliver more housing. Historically, we have gone and had projects this size. We've had 3,000-acre subdivisions that we've done in Platteville, Colorado. We've got other ones that have had more units than this, but less acreage than this. We've also had a lot recently, at least since the Great Recession in 07-08, where we've done 10-acre, 50-lot communities because the home builders were not as hungry back then for hundreds of lots. They were only hungry for 30 or 50 lots at a time. So we really have to be pliable and flexible with the market conditions. But this is generally right in our kind of wheelhouse, at least right now in the market conditions.
Anything else at this point? Or?
No, from a concept plan, this is good. I'm still trying to figure out how the intergovernmental thing, because there's so many governments involved in this particular area, and it's going to even be winnowed down to, do you need a turn lane or not? Because that county is affected, ours is affected, and so on. And until we see a traffic study, it's pretty hard to make a reasonable question or comment. But and because of its location, you know, there's going to be some things like that that'll have to be either addressed or ignored or figured out, or intergovernment agreement of some sort.
Yeah, there isn't a whole lot of ignoring. We don't have the luxury of ignoring comments, right?
That was my weird sense of humor.
Yeah, but we're fully aware of it, and you know, right or wrong, this is the project, this is the place where we decided to put our flag, and we understand that we're going to have major intergovernmental cooperation required on it, from traffic to densities to neighbors and fire districts. We had some discussion the other night about 911 calls and who comes out for them if it's happening at the intersection. So we talked to the chief a little bit about that at the Rattlesnake District. We're fully aware of that intergovernmental cooperation that's going to need to happen.
This is Parker Schools?
It's Douglas County Schools, so it's Chaparral High School, Sierra Middle School, and Pine Lake Elementary. Yeah. Parker address, like most of your constituents who are down in here, have a Parker mailing address.
I guess the final back on water and sewer. Metro District will do the construction, but then repair and upkeep, is that then become Aurora Water, or is that?
You want to do it?
The repair and upkeep of
O&M of the water and sewer facilities.
Does that get turned over to Aurora Water, or does that?
It's going to be dealt with Aurora.
We're dedicating it to Aurora.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would really be a.
So once we get that water and sewer infrastructure built, we will build it. We meaning our districts will build that infrastructure. And once the city of Aurora has taken acceptance of it, just like many times infrastructure would get dedicated to the county, we will dedicate it in this case to Aurora Water.
No, and I appreciate that, because again, water and sewer is not something the county does, and for all previous developments, that's been a perpetual responsibility of the Metro District or the Water and Sewer District. So it's just wrapping our heads, I think, around some different concepts because of the boundary issues here. So, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, can I add to that as well? If you look up our graphic here, one thing that became apparent when we started looking at the old PUD, those little gray squares on that site, the large one is a water treatment plant, a sewer treatment plant, I should say. And then the other smaller square up there was a well pad and water treatment plant. So this came up in our community information meeting as well, that there was a lot of relief on the part of our neighbors, especially to the east, that they weren't going to be that close to a sewer treatment plant. So,
or that we've got straws into the aquifers.
No, that's good. Well, I think you've covered our questions. Was there something you had anticipated us asking that we haven't, or a bullet you feel you've dodged? I mean, like I said, I just rather throw it out on the table first if there's any concerns or things that you thought might be of issue that we might remember later and wish we'd asked, or.
We had a few discussions with our team about things we wanted to make sure we covered. I'd taken note of those, and I've made sure that either I proactively addressed them or some of them came by you of asking us questions. So thank you, and I think we're satisfied with the meeting.
Well, I appreciate that. And guess it's 2:22, we'll end this, but thank you very much for.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.